Hey guys, Pump One back here with you for part 2 of disassembling and reassembling the rocker mechanism. So we've shown you how to disassemble it and we've shown you how to strip it all the way down. So now we're going to show you how to reassemble it, starting with reinserting the magnet and then reinserting the rocker sides, setting the rocker, show you a very key important part that we've showed you in last videos in the past on how important it is to test the air in valve on that seat, and then we'll show you how to put the float back on and you guys should be good to go. So let's start with putting the magnet back in. Same concept as going out. You can feel it as you're kind of popping it up in there, and what you're looking for it to engage in the threads. And when he's putting this up in here, there's a couple different ways you can do it. You know, we've shown you in videos how to set the float, and that's where this really comes into play. But for right now, the most important thing is when he's putting this magnet in is just to get the magnet up in the head to where it's kind of out of the way with everything we're about to do right now with setting your valves and reinserting stuff. And you can go ahead and lock that set screw back down. Doesn't have to be really tight because obviously we're gonna, you know, revisit the magnets and have to adjust them as we start setting our float. So like I explained on part 1 of this, you know, your air valve drops in through the top, and when it drops in, the first thing you want to do is put that small lock nut back on the stem of the valve. And again, you know, all this stuff is tiny, very small, so it can be a little aggravating to work with. But so once that's in there, let's spin that so they can see. So let's actually spin the pump. Again, as we talked about in the last video, you want to make sure that that exhaust poppet is as close as it can be down to the nut and the block. And what you're looking for 2 different things. You're looking to engage this bushing here in the actual pin, and then you're looking to engage the poppet in the bottom of the head. So once those 2 things are accomplished, you're good for now. Again, we talked about our sleeves, and you could probably see it a little better here. So they're going to slide on over the spindles, and then you're just going to put your counterweight spool on your counterweight, slide the counterweight on. And again, let's say right there for a second, a good rule of thumb when you're working on these things and you're going back together with them, because it kind of can be a little trickier if you don't do it every day. But if you're looking at your exhaust valve, and you know, in other videos I've showed you the top of the head on the markings as far as EX and IN. So if you're looking at your exhaust valve or looking at your counterweight, the exhaust valve is always going to be on the left. So as soon as you put that exhaust poppet in there, you're going to reinsert your counterweight. Just make sure that your exhaust poppet is on the left. It just kind of keeps you from ever messing up. So once your sleeve is on, put your rollers back on, your actuator rod at your spring guide head, followed by the other roller. And now this is the other kind of tricky part, similar to the exhaust poppet. Once he gets his rocker together. Again, just like the rocker came off, you got 4 cap screws with 4 high collar lock washers. You want to make sure you have your lock washers on prior to going back together with this. Now when they're tight, do you normally take two, one on each side, and just kind of tighten them up? And you can see there's no real specific torque specification to be used. You know, you're not going to use anything like that in the field anyway, but you just want to make sure that both sides of the rocker are snug and tight. And again, you have the lock washers in there, so you know there's no real fear of anything backing off. But again, you know, don't over tighten them. You know, they're very small, so no need to get real tight. Now, that was, you know, he did that pretty quick, but what he's looking for is you're going to move that thing, move the rocker up and down, and you're going to find the point to where the stem of that air in valve engages the threads of the block. And that's all you're looking for at that point. And when those threads engage, you can start to tighten the stem down into the block. But notice as the stem is going down in the block, he's got to back that lock nut up. Okay, and now, so this is where it comes in, this actual setting this air in valve. And what he's looking for, I don't know if you can see his hand on holding the actual actuator rod itself. So he's holding down the actuator rod, and then he's tightening the air in valve. So what he's looking for, as he's tightening that air in valve, he's looking for a small amount of pressure that he can feel pull up on that actuator rod. Now, this is, you know, obviously this is very small stuff, and you know, you don't have to just pull down as hard as you can and just say, well, I can't feel anything, and just tighten it so tight to where it strips the air in valve out. I mean, just a small amount of pressure. Again, the stem of this thing is very small, and as soon as you can feel any kind of torque at all start to pull up on that rod, you know that you're set, and that's where you want to be. Again, it's obviously easier to explain something like that because it's so small and such a small force that, you know, you're not going to be able to see it. Again, just like you came off with it, always hold the block and then tighten the lock nut. And again, no need to get really carried away on this as far as tightening it. Again, the stem of this thing is just so small. So we've got our air in valve set. We know that's where we want it. We know that's set right. So we're going to test it. And we've shown you in the service video, we've gone through this same process. But I want to show it again in this video just because it's one of the most important things that we'll do as far as after you set that valve. It's just kind of checking yourself to make sure that this valve is set correctly. So once our air is hooked up to it, again, same concept as the other videos. We're going to look, we're going to listen. We can't hear anything, which is normally the first sign, dead giveaway that we don't have a good sealing point. Here we go up. So go about halfway. I mean, so you can see if you're, another key point that I didn't go over in the last video, what you're looking for is for this air to start coming through when your rocker is about halfway. If it comes through more than halfway, then that's great. What you don't want is for it to start coming through, go up a little bit more, other way. Like if it was coming through about right there, it's too tight. There's no need for it to be that tight. The air's coming through too soon, and it's just, that wouldn't be the way to go. So show them one more time where the air is starting to come through just a little over halfway, and that's about where you want it. So if you can't get that theory down of just holding the actuator rod down, and if you can't quite get that down, maybe a little trial and error, and then test it to see where the actual air is coming through versus where the rocker is positioned. Once we're spinning around, we're going to do the same setup on the air exhaust poppet. And what we're looking for here, we're not looking for 100% seal on this poppet valve in the bottom of the head. We want it to be a little bit loose. We want a little bit of play in it. So as you can see, he's going to find that, he's going to position it, and we're going to actually wiggle that where you can see. So can you see that pretty well as far as the play that you have in that valve? And that's about dead on. That's what you want right there. The reason for not having that thing so tight, as the pump actuates and the rocker trips, if it's so tight, it's actually going to cause the exhaust poppet to mushroom on the bottom of the head, because it's just a metal-to-metal seat. There's no rubber or anywhere involved in it. So once he knows he has it exactly where he wants it, same concept, you're just going to lock your nut down, and we know that's set correctly. There's not that much to the exhaust poppet versus the air inside of it. All right, so let's lay it down, and we'll show you how to go back on with the float. Notice when he's putting this on, I don't know why you can see it, but you always want the top of the open side. Again, this is our EP4 economy version pump. You'll notice that the open side of the float is always going to be the top, and the bottom is going to be the encapsulated part. And once that's slid up out of the way, we're going to put our guides back on, our spring, and then our bottom stop. Again, it's easier if you go ahead and get the pin started in the bottom stop. If you can show her kind of, so you're not actually going through with the pin, you're just starting it in there. And then he's just looking for the hole in the actuator rod. You're going to slide it through, and it's going to stick out a little bit at the top. So that's part 2 of disassembling and reassembling of the rocker mechanism. Again, this is our EP4 economy version pump. The XP4 is going to work the same exact way. Really no differences. Basically the key point, I mean, you know, anyone can get in here and disassemble this thing. That's not really where the hard part is. The hard part is going back together with it, and the main part is making sure these valves are set correctly. And again, I can't stress enough, test yourself once you set your air in valve. Test yourself on, you know, putting air to it and seeing where this rocker's tripping. Again, you just want it to trip a little bit over halfway, and you know you have a good set point. So thanks for watching, guys. Tune in to some of our other videos for more helps and tips. Thanks.